Hello, ho, ho, everybody. Jolly Young St. Nicholas here for What Culture Wrestling. And while most of the presenters at What Culture Wrestling have disappeared for their holidays, Jolly Young St. Nick is here to bring you the gift of the content in the form of the 10 most interesting things that we learned from Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions podcast. And his guest on this week's episode, it's time Dallas Page. Number 10, his original wrestling name. It's a little known fact that Diamond Dallas Page actually tried to break into the wrestling industry as a proper little youngster, but about 3 matches into his career, he got injured in his knee, had to take some time off to heal, and ended up falling backwards into the business of bar work. And from there, he never really thought he'd look back. He told Austin that back then, during that very short stint as an early pro wrestler, he wasn't Diamond Dallas Page, he was Handsome Dallas Page. A name befitting, I think we can all agree, and it would be quite a while before we started reimagining what the life might have been like to be Diamond Dallas Page. But nevertheless, he'd find himself during shifts where he was managing clubs and the likes, where he was planning out in his head what a run like that could actually look like, and he'd imagined having his own Diamond Exchange and being flanked by the Diamond Doll. So in other words, he'd essentially predicted the first few years of his wrestling career before they'd even happened. Well, that's an imagination for you. Number 9, the hidden impact of Paul Heyman. Now, I think it's fair to say there's a very small chance that Page might not have made his wrestling career a reality had Paul Heyman actually ended up staying back in AWA. When Heyman left the company, they were on the lookout for a new mouthpiece type character to fill the void left by Heyman, and Dallas says he had been already coming up with this new persona just for shits and giggles and decided to send in an audition tape to AWA and didn't really think that anybody would take it seriously, but they did, and they offered him a tryout. Page told Austin that during that chat with AWA officials, he essentially told them the truth. He told them he didn't really have much experience working anywhere big or pretty much anywhere, truth be told, apart from those 3 matches that he'd had, but still, the promotion saw something in him and felt like they wanted to take a chance on him being the guy to replace Paulie dangerously. Page believes that his honesty with the officials when he was speaking to them, essentially, he told them that it was like a secret society, that he didn't know how to get in. He obviously found it endearing and decided to offer him a chance because the guy had balls for even admitting it in the first place. Number 8, the footage of his WWF tryout is amazing. After dabbling in the dying brand of AWA, Dallas ended up doing a few commentary spots over in Florida before eventually he would use his friendship with Dusty Rhodes to land himself a tryout as a WWE announcer. And to say the footage of this is entertaining would be a huge understatement. Page worked in front of a green screen audience alongside Lord Alfred Hayes, and you can hear Mean Gene Okerlund counting them in to the footage, which is a nice touch as well. But on top of this, you could just see that Dallas is so either nervous or excited that he's plowing through the material he's been given. He's super enthusiastic, really over the top, keeps cutting off Lord Alfred Hayes at every single possible turn, and Austin, quite bluntly and quite fairly, says, you didn't exactly knock that one out of the park. Number 7, why he started wrestling again. After his WWF tryout, Page returned to WCW, where Dusty Rhodes had also gone, and he was going to return to his role playing a manager in the company. But after a little while doing that, he was pulled aside one day by Magnum TA backstage, who essentially said, Dusty doesn't want to tell you this, but we're going to pull you away from being a manager anymore. And Page was worried because he thought he'd done something wrong, but it turned out he was almost being punished for being too good, as Magnum TA continued to tell him that he was outshining everybody he worked with, and essentially joked that maybe they need to put him in a pair of tights and boots so he can go and wrestle. The only problem was, DDP didn't take that as a joke. With just 7 months left on his WCW contract, Page realised it was time to adapt or die. So rather than just be pulled away from management duties and do nothing, he went across to the power plant facility and started to train his ass off. Loads of people laughed at him, including the fabulous Freebirds, and Scott Hall also thought this whole thing was a mistake, but Dallas would not be deterred. Number 6, he'd record all his early matches. DDP was one of the first wrestlers Stone Cold knew who had invested in an old school camcorder. He said he would go to shows, he would set it up on a tripod and literally film the entire card from top to bottom. Take that footage, he, Austin and Pillman would get in a car and drive however many miles to the motel they were going to stay in for the night and watch the footage back and go through his matches and try to figure out how he could improve. Now obviously these days you wouldn't have to do any of that, you could just watch the footage of you wrestling wherever and whenever you like, but back then they were having to get this wire from an old camcorder, trying to plug it into an old telly, and then spend the night kind of analysing Dallas's matches. And also on top of that, you get the added bonus of some hilarious ad-libbed colour commentary from the likes of Austin, Kevin Nash and Raven while this was going on. That sounds like a good time to me. Tragically though, or somewhat logistically in fairness, Dallas doesn't have these tapes anymore because he only ever used to use one tape. He'd record the whole night and then the next night he'd record over the top of it. So there was never like a big run of tapes. But imagine if he had done that and how much money those tapes would be worth. And believe you me, that fact is not lost on old Dallas. Number 5, Eric Bischoff polished DDP. Now, for anyone who loved the People's Champ era of Diamond Dallas Page in WCW, you owe a Christmas thank you to Eric Bischoff, because he was the one who was responsible for quote-unquote trimming the fat of the original gimmick, getting rid of all the extra bits that were on Diamond Dallas Page and sort of refining him into this more realistic character that we got. Bischoff told Dallas that he needed to get rid of it all. He needed to get rid of the fur coats, the sunglasses, the cigars, all of it. Lose the gimmicks and be yourself was the advice he told Dallas, which he absolutely hated at the time, but now looks back and realises it was actually quite genius. This ultimately made him much more relatable to the audience, which in turn helped Dallas to feel like he wasn't playing a wrestler and that he was finally starting to come into his own as an actual performer. Number 4, he was scared to pitch his breakout moment. Despite striking up a rapport with Eric Bischoff, Page still felt like he was too intimidated to go and take his ideas to the WCW chief. For example, his amazing angle with the NWO in 1997 was one that Page had come up with months in advance, but just hadn't told anyone about it. Maybe through fear of rejection, I guess. Eventually, though, he would let on to Kevin Nash, and he was quite surprised to hear that Dallas was considering asking for his release if the company weren't going to do anything with him. Instead of this, Nash said, "Take your ideas and pitch them to Eric. Why would you not do that?" But he said, "No, I'm not ready for that. I don't want to do it." He would then go and have a similar conversation with Scott Hall, which resulted in the same thing. Go and tell Eric. Finally, though, it was Kevin Nash who would blink first, and he went to Eric Bischoff and took the idea to him, and Bischoff absolutely loved the idea. And from that point on, Dallas realised he needed to take the lesson from this, learn that he actually had good ideas, and that he should believe in his own ability to come up with his angles for TV. Number 3, the match analysis is worth it. Now, as always, when we do one of these, we talk about how good it is to watch Austin break down matches, and this episode is no different. Having already heard the tales about how the two used to sit and analyse DDP's matches together back in the day on that camcorder footage, this is like a little window into the past in the future, almost, if that makes sense, as the two of them analyse his match with Goldberg at Halloween Havoc 1998, and it's an absolute treat. Austin spends his time complimenting the intense reactions from Goldberg to the red-hot WCW crowd back then, while DDP spends a lot of time explaining just how much those opening kicks from Goldberg actually hurt. And it's those little details like DDP explaining how he told Bill to miss his first spear, something Bill didn't enjoy, but I think we can all agree it absolutely worked. You can just tell DDP is one of those guys who has a great mind for putting together a good match and how to get the audience to react. Number 2, he didn't know WCW was hated. Yes, call me Kurt Angle, because it's true, oh it's damn true. DDP realised there'd been an ultra-competitive edge between the two companies, but didn't realise that when he went to WWE in 2001, he'd automatically have heat because he was part of Team Atlanta back in the day. The no-brainer jump to WWE was something Page felt would ultimately happen down the line anyway, so he wasn't too bummed out when Vince McMahon came knocking on WCW's door in 2001. But Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Nash had told him that he shouldn't bail out on his guaranteed money from the AOL Time Warner deals, which is something that he ended up doing because he was obviously at an advanced age in his career and didn't want to miss out on a great opportunity. Yes, Page said if he'd been younger, he probably would have took that advice, but he was 45 years old and he wanted to work in WWE, so he went across there. But ultimately, maybe this advice from Nash and Rhodes was also because they'd been there, done that, and got the t-shirt, and as soon as DDP was made into a stalker, he was probably thinking that was some good advice that he missed out on. And number 1 with a bullet, why he's so proud of WrestleMania 18. Yes, the one thing that blew Stone Cold Steve Austin's socks off in this interview was when DDP was painting the picture of his WrestleMania 18 match with Christian back in 2002. At that time, DDP was turning 46 years of age and Christian was only 28. That's an 18-year age gap, and that's why Austin was so completely mind-blown at this point, because it's something he never even considered, which tells you just how good Dallas must have been in the ring to not look like an old guy. But because of that exact age gap, this is why Page is so proud of his European title bout with Christian at WrestleMania 18, because he feels like when you watch that back, you can't really tell that it's an old guy in there with him. 40, it's still not that old, but you know what I mean in wrestling terms. That's how he felt about it, and I think he's right too. Dallas says that he's content that even at 46 years of age, he could still hang in the ring with the 28-year-old coming into his prime like Christian on the big stage at WrestleMania, and he says it's a moment that will live on in his memory as long as he lives. Might be bloody so too. So there you have it then. Those are 10 things we learned from DDP on Stone Cold's Broken Skull Sessions podcast. Let us know your thoughts about this one in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can find the original article for this at whatculture.com/WWE. You can follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can follow me on Twitter if that's your thing at It's Adam Nicholas. Or if you just want some more videos, more gifts from Jolly Young St. Nicholas, you should be able to find some at the end of this one. I'm Adam Nicholas, this has been What Culture Wrestling. Hope you all have a very, very happy and lovely holiday period, whatever you celebrate. I might see you again before we're done, but if not, enjoy, and we'll see you on the next one.